Hello everyone, today I want to make a video going over just a general early game strategy to Leagues 4. Now, I'm just going to say this right at the beginning. I don't have a perfect answer, perfect guide, step-by-step route of every single thing you need to do on day one, because that's impossible. We're still a month away, actually about 4 weeks now. I can't give you all the answers until we see the exact tasks and relics and the exact numbers. But what I can do is give you very good predictions based on the previous leagues, in particular, the previous Trailblazer League. As you might already know, Leagues 4 is going to be a Trailblazer League Part 2, basically. Revamped, redone. They are going to be balancing a lot of the task lists, but for the most part, the core format is going to be very much the same. You're going to start with Mistalin and Karamja, and then you're going to work your way into unlocking more areas and, of course, completing tasks. Now, as a result, there's two huge objectives that you should be looking for, pretty much regardless of what tasks there are. They could change the entire thing, and these general points of advice are still going to be exactly the same. That's what I'm here to give you guys. It's just a general overview of the format. If you're like a top 100 player, you probably already know this, but really this is to help out some of the newer players. Maybe this is your first leagues ever, and you kind of want to know, like, what the heck should I be doing on day one? Because, all the tasks and relics don't really drop until the day of, so that surprise is still there. And day one's a lot of fun, right? So what are we trying to do for those first couple of days on unlocking new zones? Well, the first thing you want to be doing is you want to be completing as many tasks as possible, regardless of how hard they are to do. You just want to do as many of the easy ones as possible, right? The reason why is because you unlock new areas based off of your tasks. In Trailblazer League, you would unlock it at 60, you would get your first zone. 140, you would get your second zone, and 300, you would get your third zone, right? Remember, we have Mistalin and Karamja unlocked from the beginning, so those two already start. But then you want to be working and completing as many tasks to try to unlock more zones. More zones means more content, which means more tasks, which means more zones and more relics and all that good stuff, right? So really, your number one focus is just do as many of the easy tasks as possible. Now, why do I say irregardless of difficulty? Well, at least in Trailblazer League, every single task counts the same. One task is one task. If that's, getting your Infernal Cape, which is obviously really difficult, that's still going to count as one task. Or if it's killing a chicken, that's still going to count as one task. Let's say they change that, even if it was like weighted, typically. That's kind of how they did it in Shattered Relics. Some of the easier tasks, or some of the harder tasks had a little bit more weight to them to unlocking new content. But for the most part, let's say it was like Infernal Cape gave you 5 points and killing a chicken gave you 1 point. Obviously, it's way more in the favor of going and killing chickens and doing tasks like that, because you can probably complete those a lot easier, right? And so just to take a look at what I mean by just basically completing as many tasks as possible, you're going to have Mistalin and Karamja unlock, and there's also a lot of tasks that just count as general. So things like achieving your first level 5. This is something that counts as like the general section. And then look at this. There's 83 tasks available just in easy alone for the general section. And this is anything such as getting level 5, getting level 20. Again, this is stuff that you'll probably be getting anyway. You don't even have to really go out of your way for. But you kind of just want to go down this list and just complete as many of them as possible. When this gets updated to the OSRS wiki, I also really like going and just checking the ones that I've already done. It makes it really easy to just go down in a list, and if you need to skip something and come back to it, it's right there for you. It'll also usually allow you to check your username and then automatically get which ones you have and haven't completed, which is really, really helpful. So definitely use this. And you can see that some of these are, again, you have to go a little bit out of your way for, so like 28 coin pouches at once, but this is not very hard. This is going to take you like a minute or two. It's very simple, and it's all going to count as 1 point, get you closer and closer to unlocking new tasks and new relics and new zones. One thing I really like is to just look at like what kind of requirements are unlocked, because some of the requirements, like burning some oak logs, well, this is pretty easy, right? 15 fire making. It's not too bad. But then some of these can actually get a little bit harder, like defeating a moss giant, defeating a guard. I don't think, killing a moss giant is particularly difficult. You can probably just safe spot it, but like compared to burying some bones, Just focus on the easy ones and just try to slam as many of them as possible, even if it means you have to go a little bit out of your way. You can obviously skip some of these that take a little bit longer, like completing a clue scroll. If you get an easier beginner clue scroll, go for it, but you don't need to really go out of your way to try to like get colored logs or purple sweets. It's just not really worth your time in like the first day or so of the league. And even if we go into the mediums, you can see that a lot of the mediums are also really easy, and there's a ton of medium tasks available. This is a really good place. Mediums are a really good place to get like a balance between points and task completed, and we'll get to points in a little bit. That's coming up in the next section. But even these, something like reaching base level 50, obviously that's a little bit harder. Don't go for that. But like achieving your first level 50, you can get a lot of these done really easily. Pickpocketing a guard, like the requirements for this are not very hard. Chopping 100 willow logs is pretty easy. 40 cooking, it's not very hard. Like a lot of these are very easy. Maybe you can't get a rune pickaxe. That's okay. Skip that and come back to it later. Just focus on the ones here that don't really require you to go too far out of your way, and just try to complete as many of them. Really, it's kind of like when you got membership for the very first time and you have this huge achievement diary of every single like members content in the game. That's kind of what the first day of leagues really is. Just going and trying out everything. So just go down the list, try to get everything you can do. Again, most of these are really, really easy to do. Some of them could be a little bit harder, like killing a green dragon and stuff like that. You don't have to worry about that. You can go and just do some of the easier ones as well. And don't forget that from the beginning, you'll have access to Mistalin and Karumja, which also includes Varrock, Lumbridge, Drainer Village, basically that part of the free-to-play area. And then Karumja, obviously, all of Karumja. And there's a lot of easy and medium tasks that you can do here as well, such as using the range, which you just have to complete Cook's Assistant, very easy. Doing the Drainer Agility course, this is something you'll see a lot of people doing very early. Entering Xanaris, petting a stray dog. Just get these done as much as you can. Go down the list, try to complete them all. Even if they make you go a little bit out of your way, it's totally fine. You just want to get as many tasks as you completed so you can unlock new zones. Over in Karumja, same thing. Some of these can be a little bit harder, such as like fighting a Tsar. That might be like you might not have combat right away and stuff like that. But even something like receiving a Slayer task from Duradel, it only requires combat level 5. You don't have the typical restrictions on Slayer Masters. So you can actually like get a lot of these just kind of done very, very easily. There's not a lot of them, and some of them might take more time, like defeating a steel dragon. So I would just focus on the ones that are easier, like catching a salmon or I guess like buying a snapdragon. Like these are pretty easy. Probably won't take you too much time. Now, of course, we're not just looking to unlock new zones. We also want to be unlocking new relics, which are going to buff us up and, just make the whole process a lot more enjoyable and a lot more fun, right? Remember that relics actually do count how many points you have. They're not just based off tasks. You want to also be completing and getting a lot of points as well so you can unlock them. Tier 1 obviously starts at 0 points. Tier 2, 500. Tier 3, 2,000. Tier 4, 4,000. Tier 5 at 7,500. And Tier 6 at 15,000. So you can see it really ramps up because you're going to be getting more and more and more points from the harder tasks. Now, again, those numbers aren't final. I actually really, really assume they're going to be way different. We're also getting a tier 7 this time, which, might be 20,000, might be 25,000 points. Who knows? They could really balance it in a lot of different ways. And also keep in mind that the new tiers also give you that experience multipliers and the drop multipliers. So you can see tier 6 increases your XP multiplier from 12 times to 16 times. Tier 5 increases your drop chance from 2 times to 3 times as common for major drops. So this is why you also want to be trying to get the higher tier of relics. Obviously, they're going to make you a lot stronger, but they're also going to just make experience a lot more easy to acquire as well. And so the best way of getting relic points, in your early game at least, is to try to look for tasks that are easy to complete but happen to be in the harder category. So these are basically like free tasks that they're kind of like giving you a lot of points for how hard they are, right? So if we go to like the hard tasks, and this is just in the general region, right? Some of these, like defeating a Slayer boss, that might take you some time, or like completing 100 Slayer tasks. That's going to take you a lot of time. That's not something you're going to be able to do day 1, day 2. But like reaching level 80 in a skill, that might be something that you might be able to, complete a little bit early. Let's say you already got like 65 fishing. well, maybe going for 80 is not that bad. Maybe that's kind of worth it, right? Obviously, 70 in every skill, that's going to be pretty tough. But like getting 75 thieving, that might be pretty easy depending on what zones you go for. If you have something like the desert, this might actually be something kind of easy that you can get. So just look for ones that you can kind of knock out that are pretty easy. Something like 250 laps is going to take you a lot of time, so maybe not the best idea. But just any of these that you feel like you can kind of knock out, like casting a wave spell, that's only 62 magic. That's something you could get pretty easily. Try to look for those that give you a lot of points from the hard category and especially from the elite category. These ones give you a lot of points. They're typically some of the harder tasks to complete in the game. However, you can kind of get away with finding a couple. We don't know exactly, again, we don't know exactly what tasks. Maybe they get rebalanced, but there's always going to be a couple that are just way easier. As an example, in the general region, achieving level 90 in a skill is not it's not easy, but it's like doable depending on what skill you have. Again, I brought up thieving earlier, but like let's say you already had 75 or 80 thieving. Well, getting 90 thieving might only be like another hour, maybe an hour and a half, depending on how fast your methods are and how much experience bonus you have. But getting 90, that might be something that you might want to go like an hour out of your way for on like day one, day two, day three, and get that huge amount of points, which is going to take you to those, the next relic tier so you can unlock, more experience or more drop rates. So looking at Mistalin, it's also got a bunch of tasks that are, like defeating a rune dragon. Okay, that's pretty tough, and you're gonna need Fremenic, right? So that's hard. But like 66 agility to do a shortcut, that's not that bad. Like that is something that you might be doing anyways. So, just consider looking for things like this. Obviously, you're not going to be killing the abyssal sire in your first couple of days, but it's just look for easy things, such as like this one or stealing a diamond. It's only 78 thieving, not that bad. And again, you can see from the elites, typically these do have harder requirements. So something like if you see, like, I don't know if I see any here that are that easy to get. So I would probably just, ignore this and keep working on, the hard and the medium tasks so you can unlock more zones and only start doing these once you already have more zones unlocked. A really good example of getting those hard tasks completed for free is actually in Karumja. They actually have a lot of pretty good value tasks here. So cooking 100 karambwans, that's not that bad. That's a hard task. 77 agility to use a shortcut, not that bad. Catching 100 karambwans, you're actually getting 2 in 1 completed basically. This is also not that bad. And even things like equipping an obsidian cape and getting all the Tsar weapons, that might be like something you do while like training combat anyways. That might help you to go ahead and get a bunch of points while you're training anyways. One of the best tasks ever, and I hope they kind of bring this back because I really like this task. There's actually an elite task in Karumja for receiving 60 agility arena tickets without missing any pillars. This only takes an hour, assuming you're playing perfectly, right? And you do have to play perfectly. If you make a mistake, the hour resets, right? Because you got to get 60 in a row. But this is like a really, really cool task. If you can go and you feel comfortable doing the agility arena, I think you stop failing, or it's pretty confident you stop failing around like 60 or 70 agility, something like that. This might be a way to get like a ton of points really early on. So just look for tasks like this. In every region, there's usually going to be some hards and elites that are just way easier to complete. Even getting 90 thieving to pickpocket a diamond or getting your fire cape, this might be something that you might want to consider doing a little bit earlier than you might be used to, just to get those points a little bit earlier. Now for some more general tips that's going to help you, make your picks when it comes down to it. Again, task and relics usually come out like an hour or two before the game mode comes out. So it can feel a little bit rushed that first day when, you're trying to figure out what you want to do. You see all the tasks and you're trying to like form your path. Number one tip I'll give you is to take your time, okay? Leagues is not a sprint, it's a marathon. I will keep saying that over and over and over again. You don't need to take the first day off of work. You don't even if you can't play until the weekend, you're still going to be able to enjoy leagues. You're going to have a lot of fun with it. And it's okay to, take your time, think about your path a little bit. You don't need to have like a step-by-step guide, although I know some of you are probably coming to this video hoping I would give you all that. And maybe I will when we actually see the tasks. But you don't need to have a step-by-step guide of every single thing you're doing. Spend some time, just think about like, okay, I'm in Varrock, let's go do all the Varrock tasks. Or just go down the list. It really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if you save an hour here, an hour there, It's not gonna cost you dragon tier just because you wasted an hour on day one. Okay, so just have fun, enjoy the experience with everybody there on the first day, enjoy the experience of getting to the new zone and seeing all the people there that are also at the zone. It's a lot of fun on day one. Enjoy it. You don't need to go crazy. You don't need to stay up for 40 hours like your favorite streamers do. Now, my second big tip that I will give you, and this is why relics are so important, try to get the right relic, then start doing the appropriate content. Now, what do I mean by that? A really good example of this is actually going to be in tier 4 of the previous Trailblazer League, right? Again, they don't know if this is going to be tier 4. We don't even know if these relics are coming back. But typically, they really, really like this relic, Unnatural Selection, where people can choose what Slayer assignment they'd like to receive. I know for a fact that I will probably be getting this 99.9% of the time, okay? I love being able to pick my Slayer task. It is so, so useful. As a result, that means I probably won't be training very much Slayer until I get this one, right? If there's a task that has me get like 50 Slayer, right? Maybe I have to go kill like an Ancient Wyvern. That's 66 Slayer, I think. I probably don't want to start training Slayer until I have this task, because otherwise I'm kind of like, it's like, why would I do that? Why would I not just focus on some of the earlier ones that, are just easier to do, that I don't need anything for, that don't need like a special relic to boost it up? Remember in tier 3, this is where you get all of your combat relics. You probably don't want to really do a lot of combat until you actually get your combat relics at like double your damage, right? You want to actually do some of the other stuff. Typically, this means a lot of skilling in the early game until you get, your more powerful combat relics in the mid to late game. A good example of tasks that you can do early without really needing relics, for example, is like find a gout tuber in Taibo Wanai. Listen, it sucks, but it's gonna suck. It's gonna suck early and it's gonna suck late. So you might as well get this out of the way early, because there's really not gonna be any relic that's gonna speed this up that much. I'm not saying you should spend day one doing Taibo Wanai cleanup. Please don't do that to yourself. You are going to hate it, and you're going to hate me. But this is just what I mean by, like, these are tasks that don't really get sped up by certain relics. You can just kind of do them whenever you want. All right, for my third point of advice, I would really recommend to try to pick a good first zone. In the previous Trailblazer League, you basically unlocked your first real zone at 60 points, right? And the biggest purpose of that is to help speed you up into unlocking another zone. Because you're going to need 140 for the second zone. Obviously, those numbers might change. But I know a lot of people would sometimes get stuck because they chose a first zone that just didn't have a lot of good early game tasks. Asgarnia in particular was a huge culprit about this. And you can see like these easy and medium tasks. Some of them you might be like, okay, this is super easy, right? Like craft an air rune, defeat a troll. What is this one? Defeat the giant mole. Like this stuff is easy, right? Defeat 30 black dragons. Like enter the Warriors Guild. This stuff is all super, super easy, right? Not really. It's actually not that easy compared to some of the other zones that just have like a ton of really easy a ton of easy tasks. So like Kandarin's like a beautiful example of this. Compared to Asgarnia, visit the Tree Gnome Village. Complete Monk's Friend. Complete Sea Slug. Even if we go to the mediums, right? Like trap a Larupia. Complete the Barb Agility course. Like enter the Ranging Guild. This stuff is so much easier to do than anything like Elemental Workshop 2 or Observatory. This is so much easier to do. And you can get so much more of these done early. You can probably get these done on like your first day. So picking a zone that actually has a lot of like easy, medium, like if you already have your 3 zones unlocked, the order does kind of matter. I would just say try to pick a zone that has a bunch of early game stuff that you can go ahead and do, such as Kandarin. I think another good example of this is actually surprisingly the desert. You might think, okay, well, isn't Tombs of Amascut super late game? That is true, but there's a ton in the desert with Temperos, Pyramid Plunder, Sorcerer's Garden, Mage Training Arena, Giant's Foundry. I'm sure I'm missing Guardians of. There's like so much in the desert of just like super easy early game content. And at least like looking back at the last time, like use the bank, cut a cactus, enter the Caliphate layer, craft a fire rune. Like even these, like make a combat potion or defeat a crocodile. Defeating a crocodile is a lot easier than killing 30 black dragons. Okay, it's like a huge difference. So try to find a first zone that actually helps you. Second and third zone, don't matter as much because by then you're probably going to have access to just more of the game in general, and you can do some of the longer grinds. But for another one that I would really encourage to do is you might want to also look at Korend. Korend has just a huge amount of early game content between the Catacombs of Korend, Winter Todd. It has stuff for every skill basically. The Shazian agility course if you need that. Like there's so much to do in Korend. So I think Korend, Desert, and Kandarin are kind of like those are really good early game picks. And I would say be careful with Asgarnia and be careful of Tyrannwyn. I think Tyrannwyn is a little bit tough because in the main game you have to have like done Song of the Elves before you even get to Prif. So there's not going to be as much content to do there. It might be a little bit more sparse until you get to the mid and late game. Now it's not the end of the world. You're never gonna soft lock your account. But I know a lot of people who like picked Asgarnia first. They ended up having to do so much more Mistalin and Karumja because there just wasn't enough like early game Asgarnia tasks to get into the second zone. Okay, and for my final point of advice, save the big grinds until you get the higher experience rates. Remember that at tier 6, this is where it goes from 12 times to 16 times. And tier 4, this is where it went from 8 times to 12 times. Those are really good breakpoints for when you want to start doing like a long grind. So let's say you want to do like 4 hours of fishing or something like that. Probably should just wait till you have a little bit higher of an experience multiplier, because that's when it's just a little bit more efficient to do it. Again, in the early game, when this first couple of days, just try to do the stuff that mainly requires you to like go do a bunch of like achievement diary style tasks, if you know what I mean. And then once you've unlocked some of the higher experience multipliers, then go and do some grinds and stuff like that, because you'll have all your relics, you'll have the huge multipliers. Let's say you're going for a drop that's also boosted by the relics. So if you're trying to get like your blowpipe, try to wait until you actually have the 3 times drop or the 4 times drop, whatever it may be. Then go and farm your blowpipe or your God Wars dungeon, all that good stuff. Keep in mind that the experience bonus also applies to quests. So even though the early game quest bonus can be super, super helpful, it might be in your interest to wait till you get the next experience multiplier, then do a quest. So like, as an early game example, I know a lot of you are going to pick Kandarin, and then you're like, all right, I'm going to go straight to Kandarin and do Waterfall quest, okay? Well, you may want to wait just a little bit and like wait till you have maybe the 8 times or like the 12 times multiplier, if you can get away with it, and then do the Waterfall quest, because then you're going to get like twice the amount of experience, right? It's pretty huge, right? And again, that's not to say that you shouldn't do quests. Obviously, the quest experience is just good to have in the early game. But if you can get away with it, maybe you're really close to the next one, you might want to wait till you get to the next one and then complete the quest, so you're getting just a little bit more bonus experience. All right, and that's it for this video. Hopefully this is going to help you out. Again, I do apologize I can't give you guys like the perfect guide on day 1 to how to do everything, but honestly, it's kind of more fun to just figure things out for yourself and just have some general guidelines that are going to help you not feel lost or overwhelmed or feel like you got stuck and you don't know what to do to get to the next zone. Just remember, slam those tasks, do as many of them as you can to get more zones, because more zones means more tasks, which means more relics, which means even more zones. Hope you guys liked this video. Let me know below if I missed anything, and let me know if it helped. Again, I'm trying to publish as much content as I can for leaks because I'm super excited and I have nothing else to do while I wait anyways. Catch you guys in the next one.